The Arrival. The story opens on Elias Ward, a lonely widower living on New Sol 7, a distant human colony known for its dust storms and silence. He lost his wife 5 years ago during a mining accident, and since then, his small farm beneath the crimson sky has been nothing but empty. Desperate for companionship, he signs up for the Interspecies Companion Program, a galactic matchmaking system where lonely settlers can request partners from allied worlds. But his request is ignored by most agencies, until one file appears. Subject 982A, an alien woman named Rinna of Valeth, rejected by hundreds of applicants for being too large, too emotional, and unsuitable for aesthetic pairing. Elias reads her profile twice, noticing the way she describes herself, not with pride, but apology. Something inside him shifts. He clicks accept. 3 weeks later, a freighter lands on his farm, shaking the ground. Through the mist steps Rinna, a towering alien woman with deep violet skin and silver-ringed eyes, trembling under a too-small travel cloak. Every worker on the landing pad stares, whispers, then laughs. Elias doesn't. He removes his hat, bows slightly, and says gently, "Welcome home." For a moment, she just stands there, stunned. No one had ever said those words to her before. The tension grows when the colony registry officer mutters that this match violates local standards. Elias calmly signs the approval papers anyway, declaring, "She's human enough for my heart." That night, as the wind howls across the plains, Rinna sits by the heater, silent and confused. Elias serves her warm soup, not caring that her hands are too big for the spoon. He smiles and says, "You'll learn. We'll both learn." Outside, unseen by them, a neighbor transmits a message to the Galactic Liaison Office, warning them about a human cohabiting with an unfit Velith female. The report is marked urgent, but inside that small farm, two lonely souls begin to speak softly through the storm. For the first time in years, Elias laughs, and Rinna's eyes, those eyes everyone said were frightening, shine brighter than the heater flame. The universe may soon judge their union, but on this night, kindness has already started a quiet rebellion. The whisper in the wind. The next morning, the colony sun rose pale and weak over the dunes. Elias woke early as usual, his habit from years of mining. But now there was a sound he had not heard for years. Another breath in the house. Slow, deep, almost musical. Rinna was awake, standing outside the small window, watching the light shift through the dust clouds. She had never seen a sunrise like this. On her homeworld of Velith, the sky was always blue-green, thick with vapor. Here it was raw, crimson, endless and beautiful in a wild, dangerous way. Elias walked out, handing her a mug of hot water mixed with honey. "Coffee's too strong for newcomers," he said with a small smile. Rinna blinked in confusion, then copied his gesture, sipping carefully. The warmth surprised her. So did the way he waited for her to finish before he took his own sip. For weeks, no one on New Sol 7 spoke to Elias anymore. They whispered instead. "Human took a monster wife. Velith female? They eat raw protein. He must be desperate." Every supply drone brought not just goods, but gossip. Still, Elias ignored it, working the soil, showing Rinna how to anchor the water tubes, repair the greenhouse dome, feed the solar generators. She followed him silently, her heavy steps careful, her wide hands gentle. At night she would hum soft tones that filled the empty rooms with something almost holy. One day, while checking the outer fence, Elias found a message spike half buried in sand. It was blinking red, and a colony code for inspection. The Galactic Liaison Office had heard the report. In 2 days, a team would land to review domestic stability and interspecies compliance. He looked at the line of text again, his jaw tightening. He knew what that meant. They wanted to separate them. Rinna noticed his silence during dinner. "Elias, are you angry?" she asked quietly, her deep voice trembling slightly. He looked up, shook his head. "Not at you," he said. "Never at you." Then he took a breath. "They're coming to check on us. People who think love needs permission." Rinna's eyes dimmed. "In my world," she whispered, "we are measured by how small we can make ourselves. How little we take up space." He reached out and touched her hand, his rough fingers against her smooth violet skin. "Then maybe," he said softly, "it's time someone saw you as the galaxy should. Outside." The wind rose, carrying the red dust across the valley. The wind howled like voices, jealous, fearful, cruel. But inside the little home, something stronger was forming. kindness that did not bow, love that did not need permission. The next day, Rinna worked beside him in the fields, learning how to plant the taro wheat seeds, her large hands moving with surprising grace. When the drone from the liaison office arrived, the sky dimmed. 3 inspectors stepped out, 2 humans and 1 slender Andronian with polished armor. Their expressions were sharp, judgmental. Elias stepped forward. Standing tall, "This is Rinna," he said, "my wife." The word hung heavy in the air. The Andronian's eyes flickered with surprise. "By whose authority?" Elias smiled faintly. "By the only one that matters, ours." The inspectors exchanged glances. They began their questions about Rinna's biology, her compatibility, her reason for being chosen. But when they turned to leave, one muttered to another, "This won't end here." The wind picked up again, scattering dust across the horizon, and somewhere deep in the colony's network, the report was already being transmitted upward, to someone powerful, someone who did not like when humans broke rules meant to keep the galaxy pure. Elias didn't know it yet, but soon his quiet act of kindness would ignite something far larger than love. The Judgment of Stars. 3 nights passed since the inspectors left, and Elias could feel the weight of their silence. The farm was quiet, yet the air seemed heavy with waiting. Rinna noticed it too. Her songs at night grew softer. As if afraid to wake the sky, every transmission tower around the colony hummed with extra traffic, encrypted messages flowing toward the core systems of the Galactic Council. When the message finally came, it was not a voice, but a symbol burned into Elias's door by a drone. A single circle crossed by 2 lines, the mark of judicial review. Within the week, he was to appear before the Council's remote tribunal. Rinna's hands shook as she read the notice. "They will not understand us," she whispered. "They see me as error." Elias looked at her, then at the fields they had planted together, rows of green shoots fighting through the dust. "They will," he said quietly, "because I will make them see." 2 days later, they boarded the transport to orbital station Tyria, a gleaming ring where judgment was broadcast live to thousands of worlds. The council hall was a vast chamber of light and echo, filled with voices of 100 species. Rinna stood beside Elias, her cloak drawn tight, her heart pounding like thunder. From the gallery, a whisper rippled. "Is that the Velith reject? Why is a human defending it?" The chair of the council, a tall being of glimmering crystal, spoke first. "Elias Ward of Human Colony, New Sol 7. You stand accused of violating the compatibility regulations of the Interspecies Charter. How do you plead?" Elias took a breath, his voice steady. "I plead human," he said. A murmur ran through the crowd. Confused and angry, he continued. "Your laws were made to keep worlds apart so that no one feels threatened by what is different. But if kindness needs permission, then we are no better than the machines we build." Rinna looked at him, her eyes wet, her shoulders straightening for the first time. She stepped forward, ignoring the gasps, and spoke in her own language, a series of tones translated by the hall projector. "You call me unfit," she said, "but this human saw me as alive, as something that could grow. Is that not what the stars do every day? Grow and shine without asking permission?" For a moment the chamber fell silent. The crystal chair turned slowly, its light flickering, but before anyone could speak, a new signal cut through the airwaves, a broadcast hijacking the council's network. Across every screen, a symbol appeared with a rising blue hand over a planet, the mark of the Human Coalition fleet. A voice followed, calm but powerful. "This is Admiral Lena Hart of the Terran Diplomatic Armada. Humanity does not recognize any law that forbids compassion." Gasps filled the hall. The council's security scrambled to cut the signal, but it was too late. The words had already spread to every corner of the galaxy. Elias stood taller, his heart pounding. Rinna looked at him as if seeing the entire human race standing beside him. Outside the station's viewport, hundreds of tiny blue dots began to appear in the dark. Human ships emerging from warp, silent and bright as stars. The council chair spoke again, its voice flickering with uncertainty. "This is not your battle, human," Elias answered. Calmly, "It was never a battle, it's a promise." The judgment was suspended, but the storm had only begun, because now, for the first time, the galaxy had seen what a human heart could do when it refused to obey fear. The fire in her heart. The council chamber shook as distant alarms echoed through the orbital ring. Outside, the stars glittered with movement. Hundreds of human ships forming a silent wall around the station. They did not fire, they did not threaten, they simply waited. Their message was clear. Humanity was watching. Inside, chaos spread through the delegates. Species that had mocked humans for being sentimental now whispered nervously. They came for one man and one alien bride. Who would risk war for love? But Rinna stood still, her silver-ringed eyes bright with something fierce. Something alive. She was no longer trembling. Elias placed a hand on her arm, his touch steady. "Rinna, this isn't what I wanted," he said quietly. "I just wanted us to live in peace." She turned to him and smiled. A small, heartbreaking smile. "Peace does not live in silence," she said. "Sometimes it must burn before it can breathe." Moments later, a metallic voice echoed through the hall. "Attention all delegates. The human fleet requests open communication." The council chair hesitated, the light in its crystal body flickering. "Denied," it said sharply. "Human defiance will not be rewarded." But before the guards could move, Rinna stepped forward, her voice boomed through the translator, filled with a strange resonance that made even the air vibrate. "I am Velith," she declared, "and I was told I am unworthy of companionship, of belonging, of love. Yet this man, a human, gave me what no empire ever did, a home." Her voice broke slightly, but she continued, "If you call that crime, then brand us both guilty, but know this. Kindness is not weakness. It is evolution." The entire hall fell silent, even the translator paused, as if unsure how to render something so raw, so human. Then a young alien delegate stood up, a scaled ambassador from the Audran species, known for their cold pragmatism. He raised a hand, trembling slightly. "I vote for recognition," he said softly, one by one. More voices joined. A whisper at first, then a chorus. Different worlds, different tongues repeating the same word. "Recognition! Recognition!" Elias felt his chest tighten. Not with fear, but awe. The change had begun. Small but unstoppable still. The council chair rose again, its voice like breaking glass. "You think this will change the charter? Humans are reckless. Your kind brings fire where there should be order." Elias looked up at the glowing figure and spoke calmly. "Maybe order was the cage, Erna," he said. "And fire is how the stars remind us we're still alive." Before the chair could respond, a deep rumble shook the station. Through the viewport, a brilliant light flared. One of the human dreadnoughts was repositioning, casting the council hall in a pale blue glow. Rinna's reflection shimmered on the floor, and for the first time she looked like what she was, not rejected, not unfit, but magnificent in that light. She looked like a queen outside. Human ships formed a protective halo around the station. Inside, the council faced something it had not seen in centuries. The courage of compassion, and somewhere, deep within the human fleet's communication array, a message was prepared, a single phrase that would soon echo across 1,000 worlds. "Love is not against the law." Elias turned to Rinna, whispering softly, "Whatever happens next, we face it together." She nodded, her voice low but burning with strength. "Together, Elias, even if the stars fall." The Queen of Humanity. The station floated in silence, the storm of voices fading into the hum of distant machinery. Outside, the human fleet held position like a wall of light, engines glowing softly in the void. Inside, every eye in the council chamber was fixed on Rinna, the alien bride no one had wanted, the one who now stood unshaken before the galaxy. Elias took her hand, his calloused fingers interlacing with hers. They were an impossible pair, human and Velith. Yet in that moment, they looked like the universe's oldest truth, that love once born did not care for shape, or color or species. The council chair's light flickered again, dimmer now, uncertain. "The galaxy cannot survive chaos," it said. "Our unity depends on boundaries." Elias stepped forward, his voice low but unyielding. "Then your unity was never real, because anything that dies when love appears was already broken." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 1,000 cameras hovered in the air, broadcasting every heartbeat, every word, and far away on colony worlds, on warships, on forgotten mining stations. Beings of every kind stopped what they were doing to watch the human and the alien woman who dared to stand together. Rinna felt something stir within her, a warmth spreading through her veins like fire. Her species carried a hidden bond, a resonance that could link minds through emotion. Without thinking, she let it flow. Every delegate felt it. The memory of her loneliness, the shame of rejection, the quiet of nights where even the stars refused to speak, and then the warmth of Elias's voice, the kindness in his hands, the day she first heard "Welcome home." The hall trembled as the emotion rippled outward. Even the council chair's crystal form shimmered, fracturing light across the ceiling. It tried to speak, but its voice faltered. "What is this?" Rina's voice was soft. "Humanity," she whispered. "The thing you feared most, and not their weapons. Not their power, but their hearts." Outside, the human fleet received a single coded signal from the station. Admiral Lena Hart read the transmission and smiled. "No shots fired," she said to her crew. "Mission complete." Back in the chamber, the chair finally lowered its glowing head. "The Council recognizes the Union," it said quietly. "Let the record show. The first interspecies marriage under the new Accord of Compassion." Applause erupted. Raw and uncontrollable, Elias closed his eyes for a moment. Letting it wash over him, Rina turned to him, her eyes shimmering with tears that looked like molten silver. "You did this," she whispered. He shook his head gently, smiling. "No, we did. Months passed, and the story spread like light through darkness. Rina became known across the colonies as the Queen of Humanity, not by title, but by soul, because she had shown the stars what it meant to be seen. And Elias, once a lonely widower on a forgotten farm, became the symbol of something greater than power, the proof that kindness could reshape empires. Years later, their farm on New Sol 7 bloomed again. Two figures worked side by side under the red sky, the human and his queen. A small child played between them, laughing as the wind danced across the fields. The universe had tried to divide them, but love had written a new law, not one made of codes or decrees, but of hearts that refused to stay small. Above them, among the stars, ships of 1,000 races now traveled freely, and on every hull, in every port, a single phrase was etched. "Love is not against the law." The wind whispered through the wheat, carrying their laughter into infinity, and somewhere far beyond the stars, the galaxy finally learned what it truly meant to be human.